Hello, my foodie friends, and welcome back to Korea, or recipes from Korea, that is. And as they say in Korea, annyeonghaseyo. I might have pronounced it slightly wrong. Please forgive me, but that's how you say hello in Korean. So today, we're going to do a main dish. This could be used as a lunch meal or a dinner meal, either one, and it's called Bibimbap. I know that sounds really fun. So there's a few separate steps, and it's meant to be done in succession. So the first thing you're going to do, we're going to go backwards by just a tiny bit so I can explain it. You're going to make your rice, 2 cups of rice in 5 cups of water, and that's boiling rice. Now, if you have a rice maker, all the more wonderful. This is for boiling on the stove, which I'll show you how to do in case you've never made rice on the stove before. Now, this can be jasmine rice, long grain white rice. We actually use brown rice for 2 reasons. One, has a higher nutritional value than regular white rice. And 2, it's got a fun nutty flavor to it, which I think adds a real fun quality to this recipe. Now we're going to go to the other spectrum in order. So we'll start at the front. And before you guys wonder, I know I showed you the back. Normally my metric fans recipes are on the back. This time, metric fans, your recipe will be in the description as far as, how many milliliters, how many kilograms, and so forth. All right, so next, and this I might be pronouncing incorrectly, banchan is you're taking the bean sprouts and the spinach, and you're just blanching them. That means barely cooking them, just enough so that they're not super hard and raw. So we're doing half a pound of bean sprouts, 1 pound of fresh spinach. Don't use the canned spinach. That'll be too mushy for the traditional. I personally like baby spinach for this recipe, only because it tends to be smaller leaves, and you don't have to spend as much chopping, because once you cook this down, you have to chop it coarsely. Next, you have 2.5 tablespoons of sesame oil, 2 cloves garlic minced. If you don't have a press, that's fine. You can cut them up real small. Even though this is traditionally 2 cloves minced, I actually only did 1 clove, only because the sauce already has like a sweet / spicy quality to it that I don't want to overpower my family friends that are enjoying this. All right, next we have half a tablespoon of sesame seeds. I recommend toasted sesame seeds. You can find them in the grocery aisle or in the Asian food aisle if you have that in your grocery store. And then you're going to do 1 tablespoon of brown sugar. Now, it doesn't have to be light brown. It can be dark brown, or you could do a brown sugar substitute. I was fresh out of a brown sugar substitute, so I'm doing dark brown sugar. All right, next is the bibimbap itself. You're doing 1 large carrot julienne, and that's like long and thin. It's almost more like shearing it. So if you have a cheese grater and you just slide it lengthways down the cheese grater, that's going to be the right amount of thickness for this recipe and length. It'll be the perfect size. 1 medium zucchini, and you're going to cut long ways in half vertically, and then you're cutting it from there all the way down about a 1/4 of an inch to a 1/2 an inch, so it looks like a half moon. Then you're going to want 1/2 a pound of shiitake mushrooms, the sliced kind. Now there's 2 ways to do this. I did the canned version because I was having trouble finding fresh shiitake mushrooms. If you're going to do fresh shiitake mushrooms, you're going to want to saute them slightly on medium heat with cooking oil. However, if you do the regular canned shiitake mushrooms, you're going to drain it and pat them dry before they get put into the mix. 1 cup of cooking oil, recommended either vegetable or canola. Don't use olive oil. It will change the flavor too much. Same with avocado oil. I would recommend one or the other of these ones. Just 2 pinches. That's a little pinch of salt. Kosher salt is fine. I like Himalayan salt, but either one's fine. Iodinized salt is also a good quality too. And then you're going to do 1 teaspoon of pepper. And then we have 1/4 cup of soy sauce. And it can be light, it can be low sodium. Either one's fine. Or regular as well. 1 tablespoon of sesame oil. 2 cloves garlic minced. Yes, again, 2 cloves. There's quite a bit of garlic in this one. And that is, for some people that are sensitive to garlic, it might be too much. If you are one of those, switch this to 1 clove minced instead of 2. For this portion, we actually are going to do 2. And then 1/2 tablespoon of ginger ground. So you want the ground dry ginger that you find in the herb aisle. All right, next we got 1 tablespoon of brown sugar. Again, doesn't matter if it's dark, if it's light, or if it's a substitute, as long as it is a brown sugar-esque item. And then you're also going to need 1 pound of pork, and we are going to cut this very fine, about 1/4 of an inch. And I'd recommend doing that before you actually cook it. You're going to use 4 large eggs for 4 servings. So you put the serving 1 egg, and it's going to be sunny side up on top of each bowl. So that's 4 bowls, 4 eggs. This is done second to last. The very last thing that we do on our plate is we add the Bibimbap sauce. And to make that, you're going to need 2 tablespoons, and I might pronounce this wrong, Gochujang sauce, 1 tablespoon of rice vinegar, 1 tablespoon of sesame seed oil, or sesame oil. Either one's the same. Whether it's a sesame oil or sesame seed oil, it's the same thing. 1 tablespoon of soy sauce, again, low sodium, no added sodium, light soy sauce, all of that is fine. 1 clove of garlic minced this time, just 1, which we will be doing. 1 teaspoon of sesame seeds, again toasted. And last, 1 tablespoon of brown sugar. And again, light, dark, either one, or a substitute. There are a lot of parts to this, but once you get going, it actually doesn't take that long. The pork cooks pretty fast. The vegetables cook pretty fast. We'll go through it step by step in the kitchen. And again, metric fans, in the description is the measuring for you guys. Let's get in the kitchen and start making this bake. All right, this is how we're going to cook the rice. We're gonna be doing 2 cups of rice, which means we need 5 cups of water. Now this is the same with whatever kind of rice you do for the most part. There might be some slight changes between jasmine and white rice, plain long grain white rice. We're actually going to do brown rice. And we're going to cook the rice on medium high. So we're going to add our 2 cups of brown rice in now. We're going to add our 2 cups of brown rice in. Before you cook the rice, it's really recommended to rinse it. Rice has a dust on it that has some chemicals that are fine in small doses, but you really would be better not to have in your system. So I'd recommend rinsing your rice very thoroughly before you start cooking. Alright, now we put the rice in the water, and like I said, we're using brown rice mostly because it's just got some more health benefits than in plain long white rice. But this recipe works fine as well if you want to do jasmine or the Kelrose, which is kind of like what they use for sticky rice sometimes. All of that would be totally fine. But as I often say, use what you have in your house. And what I had in the house was brown rice. So that's what we're using. And this is going to take a while to cook. You're going to want to check it and stir it frequently, mostly because it tends to stick. So we have it on medium-high heat, and we'll catch back with you. Remember, stir that rice. And don't forget to cover it with a lid. This is going to cook for about 45 to 50 minutes. And again, remember, keep checking it and keep stirring. Okay, so once the rice starts boiling hard, almost like it's going to boil over, turn down the heat to just under medium and make sure you do a good stir. You're still going to keep the rice covered, but you want to start turning the heat down as you're beginning to do the boiling. All right, we'll come back soon. Thanks. Okay guys, so we're going to make the sauce for our bibimbap. We're going to start with our lovely brown sugar, and it doesn't have to be dark brown. Ours is dark brown. And, oh, just the one. Just the one. Oh, you got to watch these helpful hands sometimes, I tell you. Yep, just the one. And then next we're going to add our 1 clove garlic. Now, we're using a garlic press to do our 1 clove. If you don't have one of these wonderful tools, then you're going to have to cut it up really small by hand ahead of time. But as you can see, this one works really great. I highly recommend it. Sometimes it gets kind of gunked up, but that is that. Next, we're going to add our 1 tablespoon of soy sauce. And it can be various kinds. You can do low sodium. You can do light soy sauce. You can do regular. You can even do coconut aminos if you do not have soy sauce. We're going to go ahead and use a low sodium version. Or just, you know, because too much sodium is not always great, you know. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start stirring that up a bit. Oh, that's looking beautiful. See that dark, rich color? It's going to change shortly because we're going to be adding some additional sauce to the mix. Alright, next we'll add the sesame oil, and that's 1 tablespoon of sesame oil. And we'll get that stirred in a little bit. Alright, and now the next one is the Gochujang. And like I said previously, you might have to order this online if you are not able to get to an Asian food store. So the Gochujang is a hot and sweet and spicy combo. We're going to do 2 tablespoons of that. So keep in mind that this is going to be a slightly spicy or relatively spicy dish. If you have somebody that is not into spices, I would decrease the amount of the gochujang, maybe by half or even by 3/4. You know, maybe do 3/4 of a tablespoon instead, or half a tablespoon for those folks. All right, so we'll stir that up a little bit, and then we're going to add our rice vinegar next. So as you can see, it's still that dark color, but now it's got a bit of a red tinge to it, and that is exactly how it's supposed to look. That is awesome. All right, now we'll add our 1 tablespoon of rice vinegar. Okay. And all these ingredients, except for the gochujang, I was able to find at my regular grocery store in like the Asian food section for most of it. And that was very helpful. All right, next we're going to add our 1 teaspoon of sesame seeds. There we go. And these are already toasted. And then we'll stir it up. And then we're going to go ahead and set it off to the side. You can go ahead and put this in the fridge. All right, and that's good. So we're going to put this off to the side and we'll get ready for the next step. All right, so first we're going to add our julienne carrots. Now, julienne means that they are very finely cut. What we went ahead and did was used a cheese grater, the larger side, to get them the nice, fine, small, thin pieces. We also preheated the oven for 400 degrees. That is also the step that should be done at this time. Haha. All right, so now that we have our carrots in the bowl, we're going to add our zucchini. And as you can see, they're cut into a half moon shape. So we took a large, not large, but a medium size, about like this, and about yay thick, cut it in half, and then you're cutting the half moons. Could you lift up one to show the audience? There we go. Yep, so a little half moon, and they're not cut super thick. You're looking at maybe 1/4 inch or so. And next we're going to add our onion. We cut 1 full white onion, and that is going to get all mixed up together. It doesn't, we're not cutting it as the full round shape. You cut it and then cut them in half again. So they're a partial, yep, as you can see, they're a partial sort. But we want to make sure we mix it up so that the onions aren't stuck together. And then we'll put our last item in before we toss it and dress it, as they say in the fancy world. Right, that's probably good. All right, we can put in our shiitake mushrooms next. Now, with the shiitake mushrooms, as you can see, mine look a little different. I did not get the fresh shiitake mushrooms. You can. Either one's fine. I went ahead and did 4 small cans of shiitake mushrooms, and then drained them and then patted them dry before putting them into the mix. If you're going to do the fresh shiitake mushrooms, you're going to want to make sure that you slice them in nice thin slices. Not in half. You want them cut long ways. That way you have the right consistency. You also don't want them too thick. to be honest, it's much easier to just get the canned ones, drain them, and pat them. It's also somewhat easier to find shiitake mushrooms unless you're wanting to go more traditional, which would be with the fresh. All right, now that we got this kind of squared away, we're going to add in our 1 cup of vegetable oil. And like I said earlier, you can use canola oil if you want, but just as long as you have a cooking oil. I wouldn't recommend avocado or olive oil because it's going to have a really big significant taste difference. And it's going to change things quite a bit. So I would go with just a vegetable or a canola oil. We're going to stir that up, and then we'll add our seasoning. It may seem like it's very oily at first, and it's just until the oil is able to be tossed and combined and mixed together with all the vegetables. Okay, that looks good. All right, so we're going to add some salt and pepper to taste. So if you're somebody that likes salt, likes really salty foods, you're going to add a little bit more than, you know, other people will. That's good. And then some pepper. Beautiful. And then we're just going to stir it up one more time. And then we're going to put this in a separate bowl and put it to the side so that we can work on our next part, which would be the pork, once this is all stirred up. Beautiful, yep. All right, now that we have our vegetables set aside, we're going to go ahead and add our 1 tablespoon of brown sugar. And again, you don't have to have dark brown sugar. It can be light brown sugar. We're using a half a tablespoon, so we're going to go ahead and do 2 scoops instead of just 1 scoop. It'll still be 1 tablespoon total, promise. This is going to be the sauce that covers the pork. Now we're going to do half a tablespoon of ground ginger. There we go. And we're going to do 2 cloves of garlic minced. Now this time we already pre-minced the garlic, so we're just going to pop it in. All right, and then before we add the liquids, we're going to go ahead and stir everything up, kind of get it all mixed together. I wish you could smell it. It smells so nice. But I love the smell of ginger, so that's probably part of it. Okay, that looks good. Now we're going to add in 1 tablespoon of sesame oil. So since we're doing the half tablespoon measuring item, we're going to do 2 of those. But it's 1 tablespoon total, so don't want anybody getting confused. Beautiful. And then we're going to add next our 1/4 of a cup of soy sauce. So we'll measure that out. Okay, and then the very last thing, once we stir it up, we'll add our salt and pepper. Okay, now it's good. So the pepper, we're just doing 1 teaspoon. Okay, and then the last part is 2 pinches of salt. Now I know that sounds kind kind of strange, and maybe even a little old-fashioned. So everybody's pinch is going to be slightly different depending on the size of fingers that they have. The best way to do it, and we'll go ahead and start here, is to pour a little bit of salt in your hand and then take a pinch and then one more pinch. Like so. And one more. Beautiful. Then if you have extra salt, you can throw it over your shoulder for luck. Or you can wash it off and put it in the sink. If you're one of those people. Just kidding, guys. You do what you do. But I wouldn't recommend, because of the saltiness that soy sauce naturally has, I wouldn't recommend putting more than 2 pinches of salt in it. Alright, now that it's all mixed up, we're going to actually put all of our pork inside this sauce mix. And like I said before at the beginning of the show, the episode, the video as it were, is that if you don't want to use pork, you can use ribeye or a tender beef. It'll still be cut thin like we did with the pork. Either one is fine. We just went ahead and chose the pork this time to cook up, partly because that's what we had at home, because you know, you use what you have. And I don't want anybody to be breaking the bank trying to buy all these items, because it can get kind of expensive at times. Alright, now that we have all of the pork in there, we're going to go ahead and mix it up and make sure that every piece is coated with this wonderful, delicious sauce. I wish you guys can smell it. It smells so good. And a reminder, you gotta preheat the oven for 400. So if you haven't done that yet, do that now. Because as soon as it's ready, as soon as it's at that 400 mark, we're going to be putting this pork on a pan and putting it in the oven. Alright, so now we're ready to put our pork on the pan. And we're going to try to leave at least half of the pan available for the vegetables later. So this is kind of an interesting idea. So what we're doing is cooking the pork for 15 minutes on 400, and then we're going to take the pork out and we're going to add vegetables to the other half of the pan for the remaining 15 minutes. What that's going to do is leave the vegetables slightly browned, but not mushy. And it will also give a chance for the pork to completely cook. And we're trying to get the pork pieces to be nice and flat, so that it gets cooked properly. And you don't want undercooked pork, you know. Alright, so we'll get that all together and we're going to put it in the oven. Alright, so we took the meat out, that 15-minute mark. We're going to flip them over. And then after that, we're going to add our vegetables. Now, there's a fair bit of juice on the pan, and that is to be expected. And it's fine. And if the juice gets on the vegetables, all the better. Partly why we're using the same pan and not a separate pan. Alright, now we're going to take our vegetables and we're going to try not to get them crowded. Try to spread them out a bit. As you can see, we have a lot of vegetables. We're not going to get all of it on the pan this time. So we'll have to cook the rest of them on 15 minutes afterwards. But we'll go ahead and use the same pan that has the juice on it, so it still gets some of that good juicing. So that's good on that. And just kind of separate the vegetables out, because you want them as close to the pan as possible, not as much like clumped on top of each other. So we'll spread that out and get this back in the oven for 15 more minutes. Alright, and as you can see, it's completely done. The vegetables are only starting to brown a little bit, and that's great. We didn't want them fully browned and into mush. We didn't want them to be mush form. So this is beautiful. So what we'll do, because we still have extra vegetables, I almost said vitamins, extra vegetables. We'll take all this off the pan. We're going to use the same one that has the juices on there. And we'll put the last of the vegetables on to cook. But we don't need to see that part. We're going to go on to the next thing. Alright, here we go. Okay, as you can see, we have our water boiling. Or just starting to boil. First off, we're going to put our 1/2 pound of bean sprouts. Now, I went ahead and rinsed these off first. But we're going to put them in, and we're only going to cook them for 1 to 2 minutes. You just want to kind of blanch, what they call blanching the vegetables first. And then right after we blanch the bean sprouts, we're going to take and put them in an ice bath. Alright, so I sped up time. This has now been a minute, about a minute and a half. I'm going to now bring this over to the ice bath. Alright, I'm going to take this and we're going to get some tongs, pull them out, put it right in the ice bath. Just enough to cool it and shock the vegetables. Okay. I'm going to try and get some of the hot water out. Look at those beautiful bean sprouts dancing around with the ice cubes. So beautiful. Now, sometimes it's fun to have, it's good to have a little fun with your food while you're cooking. Okay, this has now been shocked. I'm going to remove the bean sprouts, put it in a separate bowl for now, because we're going to be boiling our spinach next. And remember, this is also only for blanching, so 1 to 2 minutes for the spinach. We've already rinsed our spinach. We're going to drop it in just for about a minute or two to blanch it. You're going to want to probably grab a stirring spoon. I recommend the wooden ones, just so that all of the leaves get blanched. Alright, it's been a full minute. When it comes to spinach, I'd aim for more of a minute as opposed to 2 minutes like we did with the sprouts. We're going to take this out and put it in the ice bath just like we did previously. Alright, so grabbing our wonderful tongs, just going to drop it in the ice bath. We want to shock the vegetables. I know that sounds so funny, doesn't it? Shock the vegetables, and almost as if we're being mean. Once these are fully shocked and cooled, then we're going to cut them coarsely. Even though this is baby spinach, we're just going to cut some of the pieces a little bit more so that it's not in the bowl. All spinach, just barely accompanied with rice and meat and so forth. Okay, so now we're going to make our dressing, kind of like dressing for our vegetables. We're going to first mix it all up and then add our vegetables to the bowl. First off, we're going to do our, let's start with our brown sugar. We're doing 1 tablespoon, half measuring tool, so we're going to do 2 of these. All right, so 1 tablespoon of brown sugar, and again, it can be dark, it can be light brown, either one's fine. Now, as you see, it's starting to disintegrate, starting to melt down. That's only because the bowl had been recently cleaned. So if yours isn't doing that, it's okay. It's totally fine. All right, next we're going to add our garlic. So we're doing 1 clove. I'm using a garlic press. If you don't have a garlic press, you're going to have to cut up the pieces of garlic small and mix it. Personally, I like the press because it makes it very, very fine. You may have to open and close it a few times if you have one. And then I would recommend a knife to slide it off with. There we go. Wonderful. All right, next we're going to add our sesame seed oil, and that's 2.5 tablespoons. So we have our liquid measuring side. These are 1/2 tablespoons, so we're going to use a few of them. There's 1/2, 1, 1.5, 2, and 1/2. All right, set that off to the side. And then finally, we're going to add our sesame seeds. The sesame seeds are just 1/2 tablespoon. I know we've already used this. We're using the other side, so it's fine. Just pour them in. If you go over slightly, it's okay. But try to keep it pretty close to 1/2. There we go. Then we're going to stir this up and add our vegetables. All right, then you're just going to stir this up. Make sure that the brown sugar and the oil fully mix. It doesn't seem like very much, but that's okay, because we're going to be having a sauce that we're going to put over everything on the top at the very end anyway. It's going to be more like a thickened glaze, so if you feel like it's a little too thick, it is okay. It's supposed to be like that. Okay, now we're going to add the vegetables. All right, so we have both the spinach and the bean sprouts. We've already gotten the spinach cut up a little bit smaller. It's ready to go. So now what we need to do is just make sure we mix it in with this wonderful glaze. And you want to get all the bean sprouts covered, all the spinach covered. And then once we do that, we're going to just set this aside and go to the next step. All right, this has now been fully mixed up. We are ready to go and set this aside and go to our next step. Okay, so we've added the 1 tablespoon of oil, and we have the pan on medium. So this has to be fully hot before we add the egg. And this is our final step. Well, second to final step. We're going to plate our vegetables and our meat, and then the egg goes right on top, and then the sauce. So we are practically done. All right, so you're going to make sure, now that the oil is hot, make sure that it covers the whole pan. And we're just going to do 1 egg at a time. This process is done 1 egg at a time, 1 bowl at a time. Reason being is that you don't want everything to get cold. It's do the whole process together, immediate serve. Okay. We're going to cook it, be runny in the middle, but the whites to be, the gooey white part to be fully white. We're not going to have it be super hard cooked. All right, this is now ready. We're going to take it off the heat and go over to our bowl, get it prepped, and we're going to put this egg on top. All right, so when doing the presentation, we have the hot rice, we have the hot meat, we have the hot vegetables, we have the cold bean sprouts and spinach. We're going to put them all in quadrants. So we're going to put a little meat on one side, a little bit of this is our carrot, zucchini, onion, mushroom mix on one side. I'm going to put our vegetable combo on the other. And then what's going to go in the middle? Our egg. Thank you, dear. And the spatula, please. All right. So once I turn it off, see, it's fully white. The egg is still mooey. That goes on the middle, like so. And then our very last, thank you, very last bit is to drizzle on some of our sauce. All right, so I'm going to just drizzle some over the egg, some over the meat and vegetables, and this is now ready to try. All right, my foodie friends, taking a first bite of the Bibimbap. I know that sounds very fun. I love that name, Bibimbap. First time trying. Here we go. I'm going to get a little bit of the egg, some of the vegetable. We'll take a bite of the meat on the next one. And we got the juice. Slight bite to it. A little bit of a bite. The squishiness of the spinach mixed with the rice is really different. Texture combo. Let's try the meat. We got some juice on the meat and some egg. The meat is really tender. That turned out amazing. I would say that if you're somebody that doesn't like spicy, don't use the Bibimbap sauce on top because that adds some bite to it. But otherwise, this is really good. I've never had rice with an egg on top, for one. So this is very unique. And I'm somebody that doesn't mind sunny side up eggs, so that works. If you're somebody that does, I would say maybe don't do the egg and have it otherwise, or cook your egg a little bit more firm, or even scrambled, I guess, would be an option. But this was stated as being the more traditional way of doing it. So, and I didn't use regular rice like the jasmine or long grain white rice. I use the brown rice more for nutrition purposes. But tastes really good. Alright guys, I love your faces. I'm gonna finish eating this because it's yummy. Let me know in the comments if you've tried this recipe, if you have any suggestions, or where would you like us to go next recipe wise. Until then, love your faces. Mwah. Bye.